over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mackie.
Hello and welcome to Dave and Mackie's Shiny Side Out on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. Not a single breath in that sentence. It's home to fresh, unadulterated ideas and conversations in the chat room, and a place to get your merch. Got our merch. Our merch is there, Zazzle. This is show number 474, 470, and 400. It's almost like a palindrome in numbers, except it isn't. Catch us on the air, online, and on your smart device, so grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. You missed Solange's show? Well, that's okay. You shouldn't, but that's all right, because you can subscribe. You can subscribe to the Freedom Slips archives, and you can check out her shows. And today she had Richard Allen Miller. Okay, and that guest was joined by Helen Downs, a writer and illustrator. So I missed it, my bad, but that's okay, because I can listen to it on the archives, and so can you, like I said, for $5 measly. Right. We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. For me, where I am today, it's the 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 people. That's right, not normally the Darug people, but today it's the 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 people. And for Dave?
And the 𝐫𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸.
Thank you, sir. And we like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. And look, it's really I've been watching this unfold now for a number of years, and people say, "Oh, look, all lives matter." Well, yeah, of course. In fact, if you take the extreme approach here, and the Taoists or Buddhists, every life matters, including a bug's life, or a mosquito's life, or a worm's life, whatever it might be. And that's fair. That's a fair statement. But if you say this within the context of Black Lives Matter, you're missing the point, and you don't understand the context within which it is raised. It is a truth. It is a truth. You can look it up yourself. It's no conspiracy here at all. That a disproportionate number, okay, of members of minorities, usually of darker skin, are held in custody in prisons and in various forms of police environments. A disproportionate percentage relative to their population mixture, right? Look, I'm making up numbers, but let's say in America, the African American population makes up 20% of the population. The prison population is somewhere around 50%, for argument's sake, right? That's not normal. That is not normal, and it's similar in other countries. And it isn't just people of African descent. In Australia, it's Aborigines. In America, in fact, you also have the original North American tribes that were there prior to colonization. And it's the same across the world in every nation where there is an indigenous population. The indigenous population, or the imported slave labor, as it were, or otherwise work labor, is disproportionately represented in the prison system. Now, it also is disproportionately represented in death by police. Okay? This is a fact. It's a thing. So the question is this something that can be changed? Well, if we want to, yes. Okay? And yeah, that's true. That is true. Sorry, Dave just asked me a question. Why don't you share that with us for a second?
Because I've got a secondary point, knowing that that's true. And a friend of mine was discussing this with me the other day, and I know he listens to the show, and thank you. You know who you are when I say it. And that was that slave gatherers would lick the skin of the captive slaves before enduring the boat journey. So to ensure that the salty taste meant that they could endure the trip. Probably something to do with scurvy or better. And
dehydration. It's
dehydration. But
that's
what that actually, you can imagine what filter that provided the DNA selection of those captured and brought to Americas and the other places where slaves were utilized. Yeah.
People that survived the journey,
yes,
for one,
yes.
As well as then obviously the slavery itself, were extremely hardy, meaning they were extremely robust people. So what you will see in the United States, I mean, again, it's generalization, but we'll see that the African American population excels in sports simply because they were selectively bred to be physically superior, to be better workers, if you get my meaning, right? And also crossbred with different races, as horrible as that sounds. Okay, it's a thing. It's what happened, and not just in America, but it happened in many other colonies, and it goes right back to ancient times. You know, the Roman slave empire, where they bred gladiators, you know, to fight better, longer, harder. It's a horrible truth, but we shall never forget it. We shall never forget it. We must always remember it. And not only that, we must acknowledge that slavery is still a thing today. So just quickly to go back to the Black Lives Matter thing. So the indigenous populations, or the imported slave labor, as it were, in other parts of the world, are disadvantaged from the get-go, even today. And as I said, they're being disproportionately killed by the authorities. It's a fact. In Australia as well, several hundred, I think it was 400 or 500 Aboriginals have died in custody since the Royal Commission report was released about 30 years ago, or thereabouts, looking at how
it was here. That's right.
Yeah, looking about how the prison system can be improved, and not a single recommendation, I'm happy to report, has been put into place that came out of that report. And several hundred deaths later, you know, it's just as bad as it always was. So in this context now, you must understand that yes, all lives matter, but Black Lives Matter in the context of our society, because they don't seem to matter. A white person, and I'm saying this deliberately, it's because it's usually in ex-European colonies, if you will, not exclusively, but you know, quite so. It is the white, in some cases, minority that has all the advantages. Okay, and you can stand on your head and jump up and down and say, oh, it's not true. No, it is true. If you're born white and male, you have a better chance of succeeding than anybody else. Look at the billionaires. Who are the billionaires? And I'm not looking at the Chinese billionaires at the moment, because China, having 1.4 billion people in itself, and even India with 1.3 billion people, they pretty much created the billionaires within their own countries. But on a global scale, if you look at the richest people, see how many old white dudes you see. Yeah? Okay, and then have a look how many people of any other ethnicity or sex you see.
Try and find one. Yeah.
Right? So
right.
So just to be clear, right? And I find it upsetting because, Dave, just very quickly, recently, now we have seen another couple of incidences where people were killed. I mean, one guy was killed in Minneapolis while the trial to figure out George Floyd's murder went on. Well, I mean, the trial I think it was day 5 or day 6 or some crazy thing. Okay, and one other thing on the George Floyd trial, an expert has come in for defense, of course, and said, oh, you know, the killing should be ruled accidental or uncertain because of X, Y, and Z.
Oh, because there was no damage to the tissue in the neck.
So let's be very clear.
This was what was stated by that expert.
If the officer,
who was white,
is anything but found guilty, I'll go and visit the United Cinders of America.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, that's what's going to happen here. Just let's be very clear. I mean, I don't think, okay, a fair trial, you know, a presumption of innocence. We watched the video. We don't need anyone else to tell us what happened. We all saw it. We saw the video. And if the verdict is anything but guilty, and personally, look, I don't care either way. I'll be honest with you. I think it's a horrendous act that happened, but it's not my country, so I can't make a judgment. But if anything but a guilty verdict comes out of this, Dave, good night.
Yeah,
Good night,
that's right. And the second person who the body camera shows the person holding a gun and calling taser.
He was 13. He was a 13. I mean, he had a gun. Okay.
So he's a military fellow, right?
But he dropped the gun.
Just
saying. Are you talking about the kid or?
No,
okay.
So the kid shot dead 13-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not right either. And this is one, Mickey, the thing that's appalling about this was my respect for US for US law and the obedience of which you're supposed to behave in order to have a fair trial. Also requires in a constitutional republic, that's what the US is, the government is meant to keep away from, distance themselves from people's normal goings on. Just the normal goings on. The police force is the closest contact with people misbehaving. However, there's a judge, jury, and executioner should not be the person collecting those people for their day in trial. Now, this was only suspected. The guy hadn't done anything. Right? That's the kid, hadn't done anything. The poor military fellow getting pulled over and shot, he was scared to death.
Oh, no, he wasn't shot. He was just he was arrested and put on the ground. He was terrified for his life. He was. I don't think he was killed.
Do you know what he wanted to do?
What?
He wanted to pull over somewhere public.
Oh yeah.
Right. So think about this: if the police are behind you with their lights flashing, and you're a white person, you just pull over anywhere, right? But if you're not, you would prefer, and I'm going to tell you the truth, I would prefer this, and now since I've lived in America, and I would, if I came back to visit, I would want to pull over at the nearest service station, petrol station or gas station, where it's all, hundreds of cameras, it's well lit, I don't want to get shot.
Do you know what that reminds me of?
Remember the lady, Mickey, the lady that called up 911 and said, there's someone stalking me or something, right?
They shot him. Sorry, no,
shot her.
She was reporting noises that sounded like a rape in the alley behind the house.
Yeah, that's right. And then they shot her.
She was shot for her trouble. But you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the police force in a banana republic.
Yeah.
You're better off not pulling over for the police than pulling over. Or if you are pulled over in those countries, I mean, I guess you can't do it in the States. You better have a bit of money ready to give to the cops, lest they shoot you.
I hear you there.
So
I think, and while it's probably not the same, I've seen a lot of information, right? That's allows me to make an informed decision. Video and body cameras just tell the story outside of what was noted down and was the official narrative. We all know that. Everyone listening to this station knows that. If you happen to stumble upon our, YouTube archive, post a comment, right? I want to know. But this is, if you're white, you grow up with one set of values, and if you're African American, you grow up with a whole different set of values and a bunch of fear. Absolutely different life, same country. How would you, if you woke, what was that? Is it Waiting for Godot? No, it's the other one, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
Where the fellow paints himself with not black paint, but like paint, wood stain, and lives as an African American.
Oh, okay.
No, it's a book that I read a long time ago, 40 years ago, my goodness. And he wanted to see if there was a difference, and it was clear back then. And yet still nothing got done because the people in the power aren't black. So look, for me, it's a terrible annoyance. I think instead of, Meki's right, the Black Lives Matter statement, I'm just going to circle it back, is a powerful one, and absolutely the respect should be given, because it's a different world, and we're all, I'm white, so we're all kind of privileged, though we didn't know it. But in comparison, absolutely, 100%. Meki, when he says all lives matter, absolutely. And that's my point of view, is there shouldn't be any race or gender differentiation between people living in our societies. We should all be exactly the same treated, right? But I like the Zen version, Meki, the Buddhist version, where every life or all lives matter.
That's the ultimate outcome, right? I do want to say something though to the chat as well. Yes, I've seen my father pay the police in Turkey and in Yugoslavia to let us go, essentially. So I have seen it. I personally know I haven't paid, because I haven't really been to countries since I became an adult that required that kind of thing. And sorry, Peck here. I'm not sure what the point is, Peck, but people die in prison for all different reasons. That is true. That is very true. People die in prisons for all kinds of reasons, but a disproportionate number of people of color die in prison.
I like the phrase that Pack said, though. Aboriginal people die inside their souls, I believe.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
And because they're not outside on the land where they're free. And that is a very true statement.
Yeah. And look, I can't comment on the actual movement, the BLM movement, but I do know that movements do get corrupted, and they always have been. Every movement that you can think of ever has been subverted and usually turned into its opposite by the powers that be. It's a tried and true method.
Attached to violence, attached to misbehavior. It gets outed on the media, and then suddenly it's toxic to be a member of it.
But that's how you control the narrative.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
It sounds like the conspiracy theorist movement, Mickey, with the flat Earth.
Yeah, I would disagree with the last statement, though, Peck.
Yeah.
Most black people don't feel discrimination or racism. When you say most black people on the planet, then that's probably a true statement, because most black people on the planet either live in Africa or India or somewhere there, right? So that's probably a true statement, because if you're in your own country or your own continent, then chances are that you won't feel that racism. But I myself was a target of racism for 18 years of my life in Germany, because my father, like I said, was Turkish, and I have a Turkish name, and that was enough. Even though my eyes are green and my hair color, when I had hair, I was a light brown, it was enough.
That takes me back
to single me out for racist attacks almost every day.
So, Mickey, if you're a white person living in Japan or in China, there is a word very similar to the N word, which I won't say. Which is the only equatable word in their language, which is used to describe white people.
It's white ghost. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
And yeah, look, racism is not a white thing. It's not a black thing. Racism is a human thing. We define ourselves by saying who we are but we're not, rather than who we are. So we define ourselves against outside groups. Oh, you're not part of my group.
Okay? That's right. I don't differentiated. Yeah. Yes.
So what I'm talking about though here specifically, Pack, and look, this is for our listenership out there as well. I'm conversing with somebody in the chat room. So if you wanted to be part of the conversation for this show, jump in. Type your opinions. That's all goodness, right? But the thing is this: we're talking about institutionalized racism, if you will, where people from the get-go have been given less than a fair starting advantage.
10%, maybe.
That's
yeah.
And look, that's what it is. The thing is this, though, right? Once it comes down to it, we all die just the same, right? And we are all people, and the powers that be, and I'm not talking about the politicians, but I'm talking about, and you know what? I saw a really interesting post. We shouldn't call them the elite anymore, Dave. We should call them what they are: the parasites, the parasitic class, the people that you never see, really.
Yeah.
They like nothing better than us going for each other's throat. That's awesome, because if we do that, they're going to be fine. the present system today, any system in the world, has one objective, a primary objective, and that's to stay as it is.
Yeah.
Okay? Systems are completely self-perpetuating, and nobody that could change the system is interested in changing it because they have all the advantages. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not going to change themselves out of the system where they've got the most advantage. That's absolutely true. I think probably the best thing we could probably overhope for is a council style where there's a group of people, not a single leader, and each of them only serve a certain amount of time, that's only given by their start date. Yeah. And they rotate them out by the quantity of them. So a new person every year kind of thing. And then you end up with the long game. And the long game is not for favour, because we're coming into election year now. We're seeing a whole bunch of stuff going on and gifts and where the government seems just so nice to you this year. Oh, it must be an election year. They're gifting it. Oh, really? So the year that they just do everything you never wanted. Oh, that was the first year they got in. Because you can't stop them now. That's it. Mackie, I thought we might jump into the virus info.
Oh no, absolutely. Go ahead.
Because this week, as opposed to last week, we've now started to see some very large spikes, especially from India, France, and Argentina, where they've just spiked exponentially. Now, remember, we started talking about this way back when all the countries were first becoming, confused about the virus and didn't know what it did and didn't know how to stop it. But we're all educated now. Well, we've all had a go at trying to stop it. Some countries, like the USA, is now trying to open back up again, even without the vaccine fully deployed, just saying, you know what, we're just going to do it. And now I saw a news story, Mackie, this week, which said that the person on the television who had the most to say about it was attempting to suggest that we should only use the vaccine to let people open up, because what would the encouragement for the vaccine be otherwise? We should keep them constrained.
But the vaccine doesn't help you open up borders.
No, that's right.
Unless, and again, let's recap this just for a quick second here. So the vaccines are set to lessen the severity of the disease. That's what they're set to do. Mm-hmm. So if you get the vaccine, then you're less likely to be hospitalized and you're less likely to die. Much less likely, okay? Yeah. So, but what it does not do, it doesn't stop you from getting the disease, number one, and it doesn't stop you from spreading the disease, number two. So unless you're going to a place where everybody has been vaccinated, whether or not you are vaccinated is completely irrelevant. Mm-hmm. If you're vaccinated, that's good for you. You're not actually protecting the country you're going to. Okay,
that's only for you. So Mackie, the virus gets an opportunity to mutate every time it replicates. And so when the virus started, it was an epidemic in China. Yeah. And then it went global and turned into a pandemic. Mm-hmm. And the next one is endemic, which means it's just here forever. And now that's the position that everyone has conceded. Mm-hmm. The virus it's here to stay. Mm-hmm. And by here to stay means if we keep having vaccinations against it every year it's every year, as it mutates, we're actually allowing it to mutate. Yeah. Whereas the lockdowns lose hosts. Now, the fewer hosts and the more controls you've got over the virus, we could actually see it disappear entirely.
Yeah.
In Australia, we don't have community spread anymore. It's not here anymore. It's gone. It's that we've now got effective border controls.
Mm-hmm. Singapore too.
As long as those border controls are intact, mm-hmm. and we prevent it getting to the mass, we can just open back up again. That's what we can do. We can just go on as normal. But international travel, they're talking about 2024 now. But they're saying, but only for vaccinated people. But then vaccinated people could bring the virus in.
Yes.
So this, for me, it's not a double-edged sword. To me, it's the proper way of dealing with it is make the virus run out of hosts. Then it's gone. Simple as that. However, we don't control all of the little tiny, what have they called it? LTPCs? Little tin pot countries. That's from yes, Prime Minister. LTPCs. We don't control those, and so their controls may be less. And so if we open up all the borders and after we'd wiped it out, there might be somewhere someone had it, right? And let it run rife. So I think the vaccine thing is problematic at best because we're allowing it to remain in society. You can't just pat it on the head.
And the thing is,
go away.
As we're going forward in time, I'm sure the treatment protocols and the vaccines are going to get better and better, and eventually we will achieve something that it will, will be herd immunity. We're not there today, which Brazil has shown us, and people are also talking about India now. India's exploding. So I want to quickly say something here. India is not exploding at all. It only looks like it, and I'll tell you why. So there are 1.3 billion people in India, thereabouts. And a lot of them, and I'm talking about tens of millions of people, are living in slums. I mean, we're talking below the poverty line here, okay? And you can only know...
And their poverty line is pretty low.
It is very low. You can only know about people being sick if they have been tested. So people that are tested, you can then make a judgment on whether or not they are sick. Right, or have the virus. Okay, that's tick in a box. None of the slum people get tested, or very, very few of them. So the disease has been spreading in India through the underclasses. I think like a wildfire. That's my opinion. Okay, only now that it's affecting the people that are getting tested, because the underlying mass of people are sick now to the extent that everybody on top of them, maybe the servants or people they buy food in the street from, or people they brush past as they walk through the street, whatever it might be, is now such that it's affecting the middle and upper classes, the people that do get tested. Okay, and all of a sudden you go, oh my God, there's this explosion. No, I think what we're seeing is the tip of the iceberg for India, and not just India, but India specifically, and it's really, really bad. I mean, we're talking, 200,000 plus detected infections a day. 200,000 plus a day. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
That's for the people that are getting tested, Dave. Okay?
I know. So the pool or the reservoir of the virus is in the slums, as you said. And remember how their society works. There's people on bicycles taking hot food to people all over the place.
That's right.
And it's not like it's more like New York pavements times by 100 in the peak time when the New York pavement is filled. All the people, just imagine all the people out doing their things. It's busy. I mean, it's so busy. You're not even 2 foot from someone. You're 1 foot from somebody at all times. So, I really have a hard time believing that they can, like a struggle, Mackie, with them being able to control this in India. It's just forget it. What can you do? I know they went into lockdown for a while, but look where it is. You're right, and it's only the tested people. These numbers are only the tested people. And that's why we always have to be wary of the numbers that we present on this show, because we're getting them from the confirmed tested people, but we always know in the background that there are people who died that weren't ever tested. There's the people who just never bothered getting tested and had it, maybe didn't die. They're invisible in the numbers. We can't see them. So one thing, Mackie, that I found this week to do with these numbers, and the case fatality rate is down. It's lowering still. It's on its way down still. It's like a plane coming into land. It's almost just at that little cushion of air at 3.62%. And the vaccines talk about 91% efficacy rate, which still leaves a gap. And so the vaccine is less effective than being exposed anyway to the virus.
In preventing death.
In preventing death. That's right.
That's
because 96% of people don't die from the virus. About 90%, they reckon, are just either no symptoms at all or just like a regular flu, and it never gets worse because they've already encountered a coronavirus recently and their body's able to fight it pretty quick. Now, there's something really interesting, Mackie, that, and I know we've spoken about this last year, but just to bring it up again, and there's some people talking about this now openly. The doctors are talking about this, saying, well, flu season is really just vitamin D deficiency season. All around the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said that, if you have vitamin C, then D, and then activate it with UV light, then you're more likely to be able to fight off any virus. Flu viruses particularly is what his context was. So he said, you notice that it gets worse in winter because there's less UV light. The people who are becoming more affected by this, and he had some graphs, some studies and everything about vitamin D deficiencies in people around the world. And he also pointed out these countries are some of the highest countries to have the account of virus infections. And I thought that was very interesting. And so, the whole time, Mackie, I've been, having my vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc, because it's really important. And so far, touch wood. No, it's the other leg.
I'm taking something that's called a kiwi herb. It's like a throat spray, echinacea.
Nice.
It's got.
You're a big echinacea fan.
Yeah, it's got propolis in there. It's got a whole bunch of different things. If you ever get a chance to get it, anyone, it's from the company. It's called Kiwi Herbs, and it's just a throat spray. And just on slightly off kilter, I needed to mention this because yesterday I had a discussion with a number of doctors, which are family friends. We just had a few beers, this and that, and I brought up a couple of things. Number one, I brought up the fact that recently a mucus gland was discovered.
Yeah, no.
A 2-inch mucus gland in your head. And well, I guess I'm not shocked, but nobody had heard about it. I mean, these are medical doctors, but that doesn't mean they're interested in research. And one of the doctors said, well, there are always variations within human beings. I said, no. Everybody has this gland.
That's right.
This is not some kind of mutation in a dude. Everybody has it, but we've never seen it. And I said, we never really finished the conversation because it's sort of, drifted off into other things, which is a shame as it happens. But I said, I've seen the sliced autopsies, like they've taken these criminals, murderers, and pretty much sliced them into thin slices to get a 3D view of the human body.
That's right.
Okay, so why haven't we found the gland then? But we didn't anyway. So that's a very unsatisfactory discussion for me. The second one I brought up was around. I said this in the UK. There's a study group of medical researchers that are comparing virus interactions. And what they found is if the rhinovirus is present in your system, it shuts down SARS-CoV-2. Like it actually makes it doesn't. I'm not saying it kills it. It just doesn't do anything in your system. It becomes completely inert. And you go, oh no, that's not true. I said, I'm not making this up. Look at it yourself. I mean, and then I said that's why kids didn't get so sick with it initially. With the initial forms of this disease. Oh, you can't say that either. There's this. If that's because the rhinovirus is always there. Well, I think it's the amount of rhinovirus in your system that's important here. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's be very clear. Even the medical professionals out there, they don't know all the latest research and they don't necessarily follow all the latest reports.
No, they don't. Yes.
Dave and I, we shared the reports around fertility and COVID with you guys, right? We're going to share some more today. But so again, it is really important that you do your own thorough research. And I don't mean a Google search. Don't just do a Google search, okay? And don't just read it from one source.
Yeah.
Go to different sources and find your truth. If there's a study that's being talked about in an article, go to the study. Don't rely on the article.
No, that's right. Because
at least read the abstract.
Yeah,
of
that's
the
right.
Study. Okay, understand what it's about, please.
So, 𝐫𝐞𝐯𝐶, you know that I'm pedantic about the naming of the virus, and everyone says COVID-19, but that's the disease, and the virus is SARS-CoV-2.
Yes.
That is what it's called. That's the name of the actual virus. And I was having a chat with this elderly gentleman just the other day, and he said, "Oh no, it's the D stands for discovered in 2019. That's why it's COVID-19." I said, "So I'm really sorry to inform you, but no, it's the virus name. The virus is not COVID-19. The virus is SARS-CoV-2, and COVID-19 is coronavirus disease 19. That's in 2019." And he said, "Oh no." So I let him go, right? And he goes, I said, "Well, where did you hear that from?" He goes, "Oh no, a doctor told me." And
Well, that must be true then.
yeah, I said, "Well, the doctor's incorrect." And he looked at me. Oh my! If I could burst into flames, 𝐫𝐞𝐯𝐶, I'll tell you, it would have been right then. And I told him, honestly, you just look it up. And so while I was there, he actually started Googling it and found it, and then was completely quiet.
Well, but this is the thing, though.
Because the WHO site came up and they named it, right?
But even if someone that you perceive to be an authority figure tells you something,
Exactly.
don't take it at face value.
That's my point, and that's why I'm bringing it up. Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
That's exactly, So do your own research. I mean, look, you can listen to us, but we can be wrong. Obviously, we can be wrong, right? And if we make a mistake, we will, as soon as we know we made a mistake, we will tell everybody about it.
No.
But because we don't have a career writing on it.
I haven't got tenure or a grant.
But even so, even if there were something like that, and even if money and careers were at stake, the first duty of a scientist, especially a medical scientist,
Yes,
is to the truth and to facts.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's my opinion anyway. In an ideal world, that would be great, right?
There's a lot of hate mail. So, just to reiterate again, one last time, it's HIV and AIDS is the best example for those who don't know. HIV is the virus, and not everyone presented with AIDS, the disease. Same. You can have SARS-CoV-2 and be asymptomatic and not present with COVID-19. And the test isn't looking for COVID-19, it's looking for the presence of the virus. Media has destroyed the name so poorly, or so well, I should say, that now everyone believes the virus is COVID-19. Some people just call it Rona for Corona. They just call it Rona. Oh, I got the Rona. It's very funny. It's kind of Australianism to shrink the word down to abbreviate it.
Ranga is short for orangutan, and that really depicts red-haired people.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a Ranga.
And 𝐫𝐞𝐯𝐶 and I did not call someone that. That's only we're giving you an example in context of that phrase. Just avoided that one.
But this is what Australians do with the language. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, if someone's a redhead, normally they call them Bluey. It's an opposite name. If someone's really quiet, they call them Rowdy. For some reason, with the sarcasm. I've got legal on the phone saying that should be fine. We got away with that one. So the vaccine discussions that I've noticed going on this week are they're off the charts. So in Australia, we had a pause for the AstraZeneca vaccine because they were looking into whether there was a connection between blood clotting and receiving the vaccine. And of course, there was a connection, and that turned into the AstraZeneca vaccine then being limited to over 50s only. Yeah, bugger. that means I still have to take it. I've still got to get that vaccine. But look, it's best to explain that our media is isolating that story, because here in Australia, that's all we knew. Unless you go venturing out onto the internet or you start watching international news, and you find out the story's much bigger. Like the Catholic Church and pedophilia. We didn't hear about...
That never happened.
No, that's right, clearly. It depends on which news outlet you watch and which country's origin, because I found those stories were everywhere on the planet. In most countries with the Catholic Church, there was some history of it or a current case going on. So the media is not there to tell you what the global picture looked like. It's just the local picture. Wherever you are, that's the news we're going to feed you. So you're kind of in a little bubble. Right? That's what they do. So a friend of mine who's also listening to the show, and he knows who he is, gave me the great term this week called hit pieces. And I didn't know that was the thing, but I knew that people did it. I know it was called something. And they're being written right now with connections to one farmer against another, usually funded by one or driven by one farmer against another one for the purpose of crawling over themselves to sell 7.7 billion vaccines to the planet. And this is repeated. This is going to be annual now, as we've discussed already. So that's it. It's just a race to sell their products. So blood, no, that was a Freudian slip. Blood clots are happening in a few patients as a result of being vaccinated. Just being careful to say the right words here. And this is the best explanation I can give you. However, CNN says in their own story, which I think I've got on the screen, vaccine-induced immune thrombotic thrombocytopenia, or VITT, and I'll say it from now on, that's what it is characterized by unusual blood clotting combined with a low number of blood clotting cells called platelets. So it's a low platelet count and blood clotting at the same time. Patients suffer from dangerous clots and sometimes hemorrhaging at the same time. So far linked to AstraZeneca, but being investigated also for Johnson & Johnson. AstraZeneca is not authorized for use in the USA, and that's my quote, and then back to their quote. An unusual antibody response, so-called anti-PF4 antibodies, had only been seen before as a rare reaction to the use of common blood thinner heparin. So that's the CNN story. But then you've got the RT story, and let me see if you can identify the hit piece here, right? Blood clotting illness, PVT, 30 times more prevalent in Moderna, Pfizer COVID-19 recipients than AstraZeneca, Oxford researchers say. A team of scientists from the University of Oxford has found that after vaccination, Vaxzevria, formerly AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, Mecky, they've rebranded it.
Of course they have. Yeah.
Recipients were less likely to suffer portal vein thrombosis, or PVT, blood clots in the artery from the intestines to the liver. They didn't say about the brain and didn't say lower legs, but they've just just here. For recipients of the viral vector Vaxzevria vaccine, the incidence rates of splanchnic thrombosis, clotting in the portal and other abdominal veins, is 1.6 million.
No, per million.
1.6 per million. So the AstraZeneca results here in Australia said 1 in 200,000, which is 5 in a million. But this study says it's 1.6 per million. According to the data from the EU drugs regulator, or the European Medicines Agency, EMA, by contrast, some 44.9 cases of PVT per million people were seen amongst those who had been injected with the mRNA vaccines by Moderna and Pfizer, the Oxford research published on Thursday. So hear that?
I think Peck in the chat room has a really good beat on what this all is.
Yes.
So Peck just typed into the chat room, lies and propaganda. That's right.
That's right.
We're living in the time of doublespeak. That's where we are. Okay. And no. Afghanistan has always been our friend. No. We love the Taliban. We always have. Mujahideen, they're our friends. Oh no, the vaccine is safe. Well, this vaccine is safer, but this vaccine is the safest. It's almost funny if you look at it. I feel I'm caught in a perpetual Monty Python sketch. I think my life has turned into a Monty Python-esque comedy of errors, right? Yeah. It's everything. You turn around, and I don't know if you saw The Meaning of Life. There's this one sketch. There's a butler who's all misshapen. My fishy fish. Yes, where's my fish? That's how I feel most of the day. It's like, oh, where's my fishy fish? It makes no sense at all.
Fishy fish.
Completely
I love that. I love that scene.
I do too. But that's where we are. We are living in a world, and unless you pull back the curtain and you look at the true state of affairs and you understand what the motivations of people are, right? Yet you truly understand it. And then don't make no mistake, our politicians have no freaking idea what the motivations are. They have no idea. But unless you can take a step back, Dave, right? Unless you take a step back, look at the big picture and understand what the game plan here is. And then I like to point you to the hypothesis for that. None of this makes sense. None of this makes sense.
No. Do you know, Johnson & Johnson replied to the story, having been invited to make comment, and they said that there's not enough information to show anything to do with their vaccine. Of course they would, because right now, if you not have the spotlight on you, you're doing much better. But something really interesting, Mickey, the Brisbane biotech company, they've been trialing a drug that reduces the inflammation. In fact, it almost entirely prevents inflammation from our body's reaction to the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So it's very interesting that they should be doing that, because they've said that in the trials, the people weren't dying of the virus. So if you can eliminate the 3.62 CFR, that means we all live through it, and there is a treatment. My hope, Meki, was that there's enough people dying of the vaccine that we end up being able to test for those who would die if they got it, and be able to test everybody with that, and then positively confirm that you weren't going to die as a result of receiving what is a non-mandatory, voluntary vaccine that everyone has to have, right? Which they're going to use disincentive propaganda to allow you to make the choice, the informed choice, to take it rather than not take it.
Yeah.
So I just think this is the craziest time alive, where money is driving. Well, I shouldn't say money's always driving the outcomes. But, Elon Musk has now been given the green light to go to the moon for NASA. They've decided to use their platform, which is great. Money didn't drive it. It was decided, I suppose, in a different way. Like the most successful tech. That's the kind of thing that I expect us to have, Mackie. Not this rubbish. Not them crawling over each other to sell us something that's going to kill, at least 1 or 5 in a million, right? What? I know it doesn't sound like much, but there's no recourse. Your family's not going to get paid, $100 million if you happen to be the person that dies. They're not. There's no word of that. They're not saying, hey, look, if you die, the family gets all the money, right? No. There's nothing. You don't get any. There's nothing. Nothing at all. I want to say this, Mackie, with all of this talk about the pyramid UFOs swarming the naval vessel, footage has now come out about it.
Oh, yeah.
Right, which is great. But everyone says, why is it so poor, the footage? Surely the military has better cameras than that. Well, they do. But they're top secret. They're classified. Their technology that they could, well, they probably clearly got footage of, using this classified technology. They can't release the footage as a result.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've got is handheld mobile phones filming these swarming a naval vessel. They're intelligently controlled, no signs of propulsion. This is disclosure. It's happening.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
And look, I think we said this last time. I think I said this disclosure happened and we missed it. that's no, look, but because I bought a book recently after disclosure, right? Mm-hmm. It's a really interesting book. I will share the content with our esteemed listenership and some of the future shows. But if you look at all the things that have come out, right? There's TikTok. Then you've got the most recent statement that Dave just mentioned. In fact, this is the James Woosley, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But then you've got these shows on TV, and I know harp on it. But a UFO Witness, that's the latest show that I really urge everybody very strongly to watch. Skinwalker Ranch, the very latest show that was aired in 2020. It was shot in 2019, and I haven't seen the second season yet, but we need it. And these are all things that I personally never thought I would see, because for the first time, I've seen this is not a dramatic show. This is not a written show. This is real life stuff, a documentary, right? I've seen physical evidence for something that we can't explain across the board. Physical evidence on people, physical evidence registered by all kinds of instruments. By video. That's right. And so this is no longer something you can just dismiss. You can't, because it is. Here we are. And I've like I said before, disclosure happened and we all missed it. So it's like tomorrow they will land on the White House lawn and say, well, what we told you we're coming. What do you need?
Yeah, we've been telling you for years. That's right. So James Woosley, the ex-CIA director, said that his mate's plane, because I suppose it's different. It could be like me talking about my friend's car, but his mate's plane was paused in the air at 40,000 feet. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. And the moment I heard those words, I just went, but that's what happened to me in my plane. Not mine, but I was a passenger on a commercial flight. And I wrote that in my book. And I wrote that years ago. And remember those people told me I was wrong, Mackie?
But Dave, you're wrong.
I'm wrong. That's right. But I was wrong. But in fact, this is funny. That this is now someone of such stature in society, right? Yeah. And with clearance levels, which you could really hear him talking about this, what he could and couldn't say. He was very careful and that he didn't reveal anything too much, but he definitely said stuff is in our sky that we don't know, and they've got control, and they can stop your plane. And your plane is still a plane. It's just no longer going forward. It's in a bubble. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened to me. And there's the music.
Donate if you can. And come back for the second hour of awesome.
Donate if you can. Donate!
Do it now. Do it. Do it.
Do it. Go on.
Do it now. We will be back.
After the short break, this is David Mackey's Shiny Side Out.